Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is the Global Reality Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us here tonight for another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. And we're going to be getting into a lot of different topics of discussion tonight, a lot of different issues with you here. So glad you could join us and be with us. And didn't have a show yesterday, and I'm still trying to get everything back in here situated. I don't know, hopefully my audio isn't coming out weird or anything here tonight on the other side, because I had everything configured for recording a live band in here the other day. So I'm helping my brother and his band produce a record right now. And so all of my cabling and all my stuff last night, I realized just literally moments before I was getting ready to go on air last night that there was that none of my stuff was configured to do radio, and so I had to make a decision there at the last minute not to do the show last night, because none of my cabling was hooked up for the thing and all this. I'm hearing crackling though. Is anybody else not sounding distorted or anything? Okay, you're saying it sounds good. I just keep hearing crackling. I don't know where it's coming from. It's weird. But nonetheless, we've got a lot of stuff to get into and talk about tonight. I promise you that I will do my best to talk about Charlie Sheen as little as possible. Oh God, it's amazing how much of a psyop they've turned this into. But I'll get into it a little bit, because I got some things about it I need to say. But we'd love to have email questions from you here tonight as well. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, you can send it in through the email at globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's where you can send in questions if you have topics or anything else you'd like to hear me discuss here on the broadcast live tonight, Moonbat edition, 12:47 a.m. Central Standard Time. You don't have to come in the chat room and ask if this is live anymore. 12:47 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we're roaring and ready to go here for you tonight for another Moonbat edition of the show. So hope you have plenty of coffee handy. I hope you have plenty of everything that you need handy tonight to stay up late and get into a lot of topics of discussion and a lot of things that are going. It's insane. It's crazy. That we are being force-fed such a trivial and mundane thing right now in through the mass media, and I mean everybody is talking about this whole fiasco with Charlie Sheen. It's unbelievable to me the levels at which this thing has perpetrated and the likes of which this thing has done. And it's an amazing psychological operation. Any shred of credibility that Alex Jones have left should be gone, and all those things are apparent now. And as I talked about last week when it first started happening, that they have used the Alex Jones platform as a launching pad for this trite Hollywood distractionary horseshit, and but that's not really the issue here to me. I mean, we can talk about all night about what a shill Jones is, or him and the rest of his Jesuit buddies running this thing. By the way, we've got a funny thing I'll tell you about that in a little bit as well tonight. Interesting story, but I haven't heard anybody else say this yet. And I've been listening to some of the monitoring some of the radio shows that have been going on the past couple of days. And the one thing that I don't think anybody has really keyed in on or zeroed in on, at least not that I've heard yet, about this whole fiasco is, and to me, this is one of the most important things about it that we can identify here. And is all those things are obvious, all the things about, the Sheens and how, and again, Alex Jones just affiliation with Jesuits endlessly. We can talk about that, but does anybody else but me think that this is a little too obvious? Because don't you think that anybody in their right mind, especially coming from someone like Alex Jones, who's probably a million times on his radio show said that, Hollywood is a distraction, or they do put out these stories and to distract people with tabloid stuff. I mean, he's putting himself into a position where he is playing a part in the exact thing that he has said was the part of the problem so many times. So that in and of itself should dissolve any of his credibility, regardless of anything else we might know. But see, that's the whole thing. The whole point of this is now to paint people like Alex Jones and Charlie Sheen or anyone else, as I've been telling you for years that this was part of the plan. Go back. I've got shows going back as far as 2008 where I told you that this was the plan, to have these clowns and these coke-addicted losers be seen to the rest of everybody else and the rest of the world as being anybody that associates with wanting to get answers in this world is now going to be associated with these two clowns. But that's obvious too. And yes, Alex Jones was on The View. That's just greatness. But even that's not what I see any of this is. The biggest thing for me about all this is I think this is an intentional campaign that they're doing, again, as I said, to, try and paint truthers or anybody else that's even looking for real answers in this world, even if they're not associated with the Patriot movement, truth movement, like me or you or a lot of us are out here. Yeah, that's the best goddamn word for it I've ever heard, man. Hydra. Man, Hydra says total buffoonery. That's all. Yes, that's what it is. It's total fucking buffoonery. But that was good. Above and beyond all that, I think this is the way now that they're going to try and discredit and use this as what is written down or remembered as what has or what did discredit Alex Jones. You see, and it's interesting because this whole thing that we've had with questions about the Council for National Policy and his associations with it has spawned from the fact that so many of its founders have ties to the Jesuit order, back to the Vatican, to the highest religious orders on this planet. That's always been the real issue. Not this stuff about, is he owned by ABC? Of course, going on The View, I don't think helps the case of the people that believe that, but my God. But I think that this coming just weeks after he had the whole ordeal with Charlotte Iserby, and then, of course, Phyllis Schlafly after that. And it just seems that as everybody has been, more focused lately on the Council for National Policy, these questions with Alex Jones, Phyllis Schlafly, and all the rest of this stuff, and also at a moment where many people are focused on what's going on in the Middle Eastern countries and what's happening now with these revolutions that are being provocatory all over the planet to destabilize the Middle East. And then, boom, this is thrown out there, and everybody goes after it. And the rest of the things that are going on in the world that are important, like, right, well, good point. Yeah. As soon as this stuff came out about that England 1.5 clip, here it comes, right? Because that's what we should be talking about right now. We should be talking about the fact that Alex Jones shot video inside of a Council for National Policy meeting and put it in his in-game 1.5 movie that came out in 2007, which blows holes wide open in his story of the audio clips that we have of him from his show, where he says a year ago, 2 years ago, I've never heard of this group. I never heard about them until recently. I don't even know anything about them, but yet there it is in his own film. And so, here comes that. But I think that's the whole point. I think this is a engineered campaign to start discrediting Alex Jones. And I think that in the long run, this is what people want. This is what they want people to remember Alex Jones, why he was discredited. Not the fact that he got owned in broad daylight for his connections and the things that we've exposed about him, but the fact that he, because that's what's going to happen if Charlie Sheen dies. Which, even before this happened, I was telling you, well, I mean, I don't think old Charlie's going to make it through the rest of this year. I was making that joke about maybe we should get a death pool going on Charlie Sheen and whoever gets closest wins a prize. I was joking around about that, but the fucked up thing about it is that if Sheen does kick over from all this and it ends up being drug related, which we know it will be, Jones on The View yesterday was talking about, folks, I know Charlie's been clean for 10 years, folks. He just went on a bender, folks. I mean, my God, they're putting Alex Jones on The View. All this, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And the most important thing on the calendar for Mr. Jones on Monday is going to New York or LA or wherever, New York, I guess it is, to film a piece with The View. I mean, if The View called me up for something and wanted me to come on about something, you know what my answer would be? I'd go, here you go, get a piece of paper down. I want that goody two-shoes, Republican fucking sucker of Satan's cock, Hasselbutt, to read it. And I want it to say, suck it, in big, bold, black letters. Because that's what you do when these mainstream fucking cronies come knocking on your door. You throw the middle finger up and you tell them to suck it. You don't cower down to them and go, oh, yes, when shall I get on the plane to come to you, my masters? It makes that clip we have now of him saying, do you know what it's like to go to bed every night knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers? Because I do. Yeah, and literally there's a clip where Jones says that. We're going to have it in the new movie. Unbelievable. He just jumps and runs whenever the intelligentsia tells him to. I mean, my unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff. And it's unbelievable that is what people are talking about. Somebody put a poll in the chat room earlier that was like, who do you believe is more batshit crazy, Omar Gaddafi or Charlie Sheen? And it was predominantly everybody said that, Sheen is more batshit crazy than Gaddafi. But I think that poll is probably skewed by the fact that the majority of the people that probably participated in that poll don't have any idea who Gaddafi is, because they haven't heard about him in on the tabloid news. But they certainly have heard of Charlie Sheen in the tabloid news. By the way, Charlie Sheen was also in a little movie you may have heard of called Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So, regardless of how many drugs he does, we can never criticize him because he was also in Red Dawn. So, the fact that you are in Red Dawn and Ferris Bueller's Day Off gives you a lifetime pass to be a coked out, Jesuit, crazy Alex Jones, sucker of Alex Jones. I love how Jones tried to say that, folks, I didn't even know Charlie was going to call in. It was just a surprise thing. And then he says on The View that he was at his house 2 weeks ago. I find it a little hard to believe that if you were at his house 2 weeks ago, that you didn't know he was going to call. And it's bullshit. This was a media charade that was planned out from day one. And you notice he makes it's always these Jesuit clowns who make these anti-Semitic remarks, isn't it? You notice that? Right? I mean, straight up protocols of the elders of Zion. You know, the whole thing about how that's why they created the protocols of the elders of Zion was so when anybody started getting too close to the real power structure, they could roll out, that it's all the Jews. Well, my goodness gracious. Because, now that Charlie Sheen has, for, the past several years, made it very apparent that he believes 9/11 was an inside job. And now it's made it very apparent also that, he's going around calling people Kike McKikenstein or whatever the fuck he's calling them. And Kike McKikenstein, isn't that what he called that guy? Something like that. I don't know. But, and then he said something about him. He said something about that he was, everybody knows that we're Vatican assassins or some shit like that. Vatican assassin warlocks. And it makes me wonder if that was him fucking around or if that was letting a little bit of truth come out. My God. I mean, look at Martin Sheen. Bunch of communists, all of them anyway. Jesus Christ. Jaime Levine. I like Kike McKikenstein better than Jaime Levine. I think Sheen needs to hire me to be his new personal anti-Semitic epitaph writer. Hey, Josh, I wondering if you could write me something that was very, very negative towards the Jews, because I really could use a new epitaph. That's what he talks like. He's always really like this. And if I want to do crack, by God, I'm going to do it. Oh man. But anyway, earlier I was telling you guys, because the same thing happened with Mel Gibson, and of course Alex Jones will go on and gush all day long about how he's friends with the Gibson family. He's had Hutton Gibson on his show many times. Mel Gibson loves him. Apparently Mel Gibson believes everything that Alex Jones believes, but he won't come out and say it publicly or some shit. I mean, they're all Jesuits. Mel Gibson's father was a former Jesuit priest, for God's sakes. But and let me go here through my stack here and find this. This was unbelievable to me. It says oh crap. Lost one of my articles there. Hopefully it wasn't a good one. It says the bitter Hollywood bad boy took the airwaves and internet yesterday in a scorched earth campaign against Chuck Lorre, the creator of his canceled hit sitcom 2.5 Men, and anyone else he believes is threatening the well-being of his wallet. I am a warrior, and this is my battlefield. Charlie Sheen told the Post, there are a lot of people relying on me. I have a certain lifestyle that my family and I are accustomed to, and these nabobs are getting in the way of that. What is a nabob? Or nabob? Huh. I was counting on that dough. This guy, so now he's going to cry a river because he didn't get his $2 million a show. I mean, I don't know how anybody who can get on a radio show or anything else and talk about any of the stuff that's happening in the world justify any time given to this drug-addicted Jesuit plant clown that's being used to further the agenda that Alex Jones claims to be against. $2 million an episode? My God. What has this guy ever... I've said it once, I'll say it many times. What has Charlie Sheen ever done for real researchers? Charlie, hey, if you wanted to prove your worthiness, why don't you donate that $2 million an episode to putting up radio stations or, funding films for people like myself or something like, no, but you don't do that because you put it towards Coke and all this other shit. You don't give a damn about what's going on in the world. You're just being used like a puppet with a stick up your ass, like the rest of these guys are. And as long as they pay you and give you plenty of hookers and drugs, you don't give a fuck what anybody really thinks about you because you're better and you're outside of the club and you're outside of the world of everybody else. So it doesn't matter. You can do what you want anyway. And isn't that what you guys think? This is the death knell for Jones. I mean, it already was, but it's just ringing more. The death knell is just ringing more and more every day. But what we have to be aware of here is this is being used and created 100% to try and paint with a very broad brush anyone that talks about these topics. And we know that they've wanted to do that for a very long time. They do want to make it a very 1984 type of world where, you know, there are no beliefs that you can have that the whole system or the whole state doesn't have. And so everything is in order. And that's what they want to do. They want to make it to where, you know, people 100 years from now won't know about this kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm sticking by everything I've said about this about the past couple of years has been coming true. It's insane. 100% accuracy rate on the way that this was going to go with trying to get everybody associated, people that are really hungry for knowledge and thirsty for the truth of the lies that we've been told, are going to be attempt to, you know, thrown into that. But it's, you know, it's too late for that. It's really out of control now because there's the amount of people that are now awake compared to this would have worked 2 or 3 years ago. I think they're too late trying to run this op. But again, I don't think they have any choice now that Alex Jones is being exposed. And I think basically, I don't know. I'll tell you my opinion. And just because it's my opinion doesn't make it fact. I don't know, man. I'm of the opinion that I think Alex Jones got a phone call. I think he got a phone call. I think after all this CMP stuff has come out, notice they've tried to sweep it under the rug. Every time I come out with a big piece of info that should be just monumental, world changing, it always attempts to be negated. I don't know how anybody now can deny that piece of info with Jones footage from his own cameras inside of a Council for National Policy meeting. How can you deny that? But I think he got a phone call. I think somebody from on high said, "Look, you know, we got a lot of bad hangout here on this CMP thing, and what we need you to do is we basically need you to be a part of this Charlie Sheen operation with us, so we can get people focused on this instead of what's going on in the Middle East and what's happening in Egypt and what's happening in Yemen and what's happening in this country with these earthquakes, with New Madrid heating up. We're now 2 months away from National Level Exercise 2011, in which they will either simulate or actually create, using scalar technology, an earthquake happening along the New Madrid fault line." I mean, there's all kinds of topics and everything else that I'm sorry. I was looking at an email. Forget where I was going now. Oh man, yeah, it's just it's unbelievable. No, I mean I think that we all need to be aware of the fact that it's, you know, yes, we know Jonesy's a shill, and yes, we can say that this whole thing was perpetrated for those reasons. But I think it's deeper than that. I think that this is the first run of the attempt. And yeah, you know, the next thing I hear that he's going to do is he's supposed to be making he's supposed to be making some kind of film on chemtrails or something of that nature. Yeah. Oh man, that's going to be a whitewash, I'm sure. But we have tons of news tonight. Again, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. It's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. If you have email questions, you have topics, you have anything you'd like to hear me get into tonight, you can definitely send it over there. Largest earthquake in 35 years hits Arkansas. The central Arkansas town of Greenbrier has been plagued for months by hundreds of small earthquakes. And after being woken up by the largest quake to hit the state in 35 years, residents said Monday they're unsettled by the increasing severity and lack of warning. The U.S. Geological Survey recorded the quake at 11 p.m. Sunday, centered just northeast of Greenbrier, about 40 miles north of Little Rock. It was the largest of more than 800 quakes to strike the area since September, and what is now being called the Guy Greenbrier earthquake swarm. The activity has garnered national attention, and researchers are studying whether there's a possible connection to the region's natural gas drilling industry. The earthquake activity varies each week, though as many as nearly 24 small quakes have occurred in a day. You don't know what to expect. It's unnerving, said Corrine Tarkenton, an employee at a local flower and gift shop. I woke up last night to the sound of my house shaking. What woke Tarkenton was a magnitude 4.7 earthquake that was also felt in Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, and Mississippi. All just prime area right around the New Madrid fault line there. No injuries or major damage have been reported, but the escalation of the severity of quakes in and around small and north central Arkansas town has many residents on edge. Some said they're seeing gradual damage to their homes, such as cracks in walls and driveways. We probably had about 40 or 50 calls last night, and said Sergeant Rick Woody, noting that the tone of the calls had changed after previous quakes. Most callers simply wanted to find out if a loud noise they heard was an earthquake. Man, I should go up there. I should go to this town, Greenbrier. So I should go up. I should go up there and film a documentary about this or something. Get some footage. Go up there and see, how many fucking they say 24 in a day, 24 earthquakes in one day. Fuck. Go up there and get some of this on video, man. I mean, find out what's happening here. At least document some of this. My God. That's just unbelievable. Let me continue on this. It said that the fear had calmed down again until last night. What he said Monday, police's biggest concern now are whether or not these earthquakes are going to get any bigger. They had 700 in a month last month. My God. Scott Osberg, seismologist for the Arkansas Geological Survey, said Sunday's record quake was at the max end of what scientists expect to happen. Basing that judgment on this swarm and others in the past, it's possible that a quake ranging from magnitude 5 to 5.5 could occur. But anything greater than that is highly unlikely, he said. Osberg said that he plans to hold a town meeting in Greenbrier next month to address people's concerns. This quake actually scared folks. He said it lasted a lot longer than the other ones did. Osberg and scientists said scientists continue to study whether there may be a connection between the earthquakes and local injection wells, where the natural gas industry pumps wastewater that can no longer be used by drillers for hydraulic fracturing or fracking. It involves injecting pressurized water to create deep fractures in the ground to help free the gas. Geologists don't believe the fracking is the problem, but possibly the injection wells. Major source of the state's, well, I mean, look, it's pretty simple. Were these earthquakes happening prior to the natural gas activity in and around the area? I have not seen anything that has indicated to me so far that this was happening until they started drilling and fracking there in that area. So I think that we can all easily deduce. How fucking stupid do they think we are? I think we can safely deduce that these earthquakes are being caused. Cause and effect there, baby. Cause and effect. Unbelievable stuff. We're going to take a break, come back, get into more news and information tonight. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. If you have a topic, if you have a question, you have something you want to hear me talk about tonight, love to hear from you. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Stay with us, folks. We're going to get Moonbatty tonight, and best get yourself a little caffeine shot here. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality, right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us here tonight for this late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast, and we're going to be getting into a lot more topics of discussion with you here tonight on the show. So glad you could join us. We hope that if you've got any topics of discussion you'd like to get on the table, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. So I'd love to hear from you there. If you have any sort of topics or anything else you want to hear, we're going to be getting very, very Moonbatty tonight. So we'll just go until we're out of things to talk about here for you. But I had talked about last week. I was just renewed interest in going back and researching stuff into the ancient rock wall in Rockwall, Texas, and I've been doing more research and going back and looking over things. And I have a new theory that on what I think this thing is. I'd like to share that with you here tonight, as well as tell you about some other pieces of information about this thing that I found out that I think you'll find interesting. So we'll talk about that here in just a bit. This was we paid the bills today. So thank you to everybody who supported us in the month of February and helped us reach our goal for the month and take care of all the bills and everything else that we had to take care of there for the month. And also, we also got another donation in for the Seagrite Volume 2. So really all I have to do is just get the next piece of, buy the next piece of gear I've got to have to finish what I need. And then we'll be all to be left there from there is for me to just get it all done and get everything in it. So it's coming along quite nicely. The chipping banner is there for the bills for the month, and the donate button is there for the films and other amounts or anything else. So thanks to everybody out there who has donated and supported to us and continues to keep us pushing forward. And that's why, and I'm sorry and I apologize for having to even talk about, the only reason I even talked about the Alex Jones, Charlie Sheen thing is because it does tie into my research with the CMP stuff. And so I kind of do have to talk about it for those reasons. But, for me, there's just so much of the real research, and there's so much other things that we just don't have a lot of time left, I feel, to uncover the things that need to be uncovered. And there's so many things that we can occupy our minds with when it comes to this information, trying to find out. And I just left and right, I just see things where, and more than it's always been like this, but more and more I see and I think that's because we're starting to find out more. So they're having to launch more of these distractionary operations. It's any of this new information that we find out, or any of this stuff that we that we come out with that exposes the grand plan and the much larger operation. You have to understand, anybody that would see any of that as a bad thing, anybody that thinks that further exposing the Council for National Policy and how the entire Patriot Movement, Truth Movement has been a fraud and a front for these white supremacists to build their army so they can fulfill what was in the Turner Diaries, I'm sorry. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that people would see that as a bad thing. This is really pushing forward with truth, not with this crap where everything's just stayed the same for years and years and people just been bitching and pissing and moaning about it on radio. Mainstream truth movement, patriot movement, whatever you want to call it, all that crap wasn't set up to find real truth. It was set up for the continuation of the hiding of the truth. And all world religions are based on lies, not the information in themselves, which in many cases is actually factual representations of events that happened in human history. But we don't have the context for what these things are talking about. We're not given that. So we're just now figuring out things like what is in the book of Genesis with genetic manipulation and the rest of this stuff. The genealogy of the gene of Isis. Genesis, the gene of Isis. That's why that's there, because now we know that what they're talking about is genetic manipulation. We have a context for it. But every major world religion or spiritual movement from the dawn of time has been gobbled up by the priests, absorbed, and then bastardized into something else, and then they spread these around the world, and then they get all of us throughout the planet fighting over who has the right one or the wrong one. When you get down to it, a lot of these things originated from the same place. I mean, we have stories of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who walked on water, put no other messiahs before me, was crucified. Almost identical stories. There's tons of these. Viracocha, Onas. But the interesting thing about Quetzalcoatl is that brings us to what I now firmly believe the mysterious rock wall in Rockwall, Texas is, and why it's people have gone at great lengths to cover it up. I believe that the ancient rock wall in Rockwall, Texas is what the Mexicans and the Mesoamericans refer to as the mythical kingdom of Aztlan. Aztlan is also known as Atlantis. And when I first met with John Lindsay, the architect who did the dig in 1999, and was one of the biggest, he worked for NASA on Apollo 12, and how he found out about it was Landsat images from NASA. And ever since I met with that guy at his house, and just from that first initial meeting, I was like, this has something to do with Atlantis. And I think he said some stuff like that too, that it somehow related to Atlantis. And there was a story in the Rockwall paper where one of the caverns that they went down into, they found these two marble pillars, black marble pillars inside that were supporting this whole cavern that they've now covered up. And what's interesting is in Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Destiny of America, he talks about this gentleman being taken down underneath this cavern in Africa and shown these two black marble pillars that supposedly went back to the time of Atlantis. Now, I thought that was a strange and interesting coincidence, and there was a gentleman who found an artifact, and it's on Dave Campbell. I think it's on anarchaeology.com. I think it's on his website. But there's this little there was a guy who found an artifact out in the town of Roy City, which is a little ways out from where Rockwall is. And there was a scientist who kept saying, "Oh, it's a fossil, it's a fossil." And John Lindsay, the architect, said, "No, it's not a fossil. It's an artifact." And he went and had it. He said, "Look, I'm going to show you guys. It's an artifact. It's not a fossil." And he took it and he had it examined. And when he had it examined, it indeed turned out that it was an artifact, not a fossil. And what this artifact was said to represent was Quetzalcoatl. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, there were two giant stone rocks that were uncovered, I think, in the 1940s from the area around the rock wall, one of which was in the basement of what is now it's the old Rockwall Courthouse downtown, where they actually have a representation of the rock wall there. Delphi and I have a picture standing out in front of it, but they have one of these 3.5 ton stone rocks there that they uncovered, and they had this ancient writing on it. And the only place this writing has been found has been in Aztec and Mesoamerican type of artifacts. And there have been other architects and other archaeologists who have looked at the rock wall evidence and said, yes, it indeed does have characteristics of early Mesopotamia. Now, what was interesting about this artifact that was found was that when John Lindsay found out what tribe in Mexico it related to. This explains why when I went to his house, he had this Mayan spaceman statue in there that was real. And I was sitting there looking at that thing going, man, I don't think this guy's supposed to have that. That's probably supposed to be in a museum somewhere. It was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable. If I ever get to go back to his house, I'll take a picture of it. It was an unbelievable piece of artifact. It was a fucking little spaceman in a spacesuit, and it was fucking, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of years old. It was unbelievable. But come to find out, whatever Mesoamerican tribe this had related to, John Lindsay went to Mexico to meet with them about this artifact, and when he got there, they already knew he was coming. I'm not kidding you. They had prophesized that he was coming about this artifact. And they told him what it was and put him in contact with a guy who could make a mold of it and recreate it because they knew what it was. They were expecting, they had prophesized this white man coming to their tribe about this artifact that related to their ancestors. Now, how unbelievable is that? And it was said that this artifact pertained to Quetzalcoatl, and it kind of looks like a goat alien head thing. That's what the artifact looks like. It's crazy. And come to find out, the Tales of Aslan talked about how the early the Mesoamericans, before they migrated south to Mexico and set up their empire there, they migrated south from a northern area. And so I found it interesting that a lot of these areas that have been found, they talk about these chambers and how they had, these pockets under what is now Lake Ray Hubbard where the wall was, and there's these chambers, and they cracked into them, and then they go deeper down. I found this image of this ancient, I don't know how old it is, but supposedly this is an image of what, and I'll put this in the chat room for you, of what Aslan was supposed to look like. And they talked about Aslan being this like giant, walled-in structure with multiple rooms and chambers, which is exactly what the rock wall has. And I found this picture there, and you look at that, and as I was looking at that, I was blown away by the fact that, that we know what we know about the rock wall having these chambers, and with the wall structure, and you can almost see in the inside of this picture where you see the orange part on the inside of it, you can almost see where that looks like a wall, like a stacked wall structure. I was just blown away by that, and it really struck me when I started thinking about the fact that the stones, and this is where the whole idea that the rock wall structure is man-made doesn't wash, is because the stones that comprise the wall are made of geopolymer crystals. 3 different distinct types of crystals, not indicative to this particular area, that were brought in from an outside source and put together and put into this these walls to make the structure. And that was one of the things that I had found about Quetzalcoatl, is that Quetzalcoatl is said to have been, well, let me find it. It says, where did it go? Yeah, he's supposed to be a Quetzalcoatl, so supposedly an expert in gem cutting and metal casing. From the distant east, from the fabulous Huhu Thapilon, this mysterious person came to Tula, which is supposed to be like Aslan, and became the patron god and high priest of the ancestors of the Toltecs. He is described as having been a white man with strong formation of body, broad forehead, large eyes, and a flowing beard. This is what they described Quetzalcoatl as. He was skilled in many arts. He invented gem cutting and metal casing. I went, gem cutting. Well, now that we know these 3 crystals, these three different types of crystals made the wall, and then metal casting, metal casting, or I kept saying casing, casting, metal casting. Well, that's what they found embedded into the wall. They found a casted metal smelted wheel. I held it in my hand. That was made of copper, iron, tin, which they dated it thousands of years before mankind was making anything that sophisticated. And it exists, folks. I've held it in my hand at John Lindsay's house. We just called this guy up and said we were looking into this rock wall stuff, and he just let us come out to his house. And he gave us about a 2-hour spiel before. This was several years ago, 2008, I guess it was. And he gave us his 2-hour spiel before we finally told him after 2 hours, look, man, you don't have to convince us that this was not built by, probably not built by humans. And he was like, oh, thank God, you know. There was like a picture of him standing there with Zachariah Stitchin. I was like, man, that's weird. You know, I'm completely blown away by this. I think that, all these things are starting to make more sense to me, man. This whole thing about being awesome, because if it was all this whole area where I'm at, you know, all Texas, we're down here, this used to be Mexico, folks. And, you know, if those people ever found out that, you know, their mythical kingdom of Aslan is buried under the richest, most affluent white Christian county in all of Texas, they would probably be raising a stink and want it declared an archaeological site and want all the. There are houses I found that are right on the wall area that are upwards of $300 to $500 million homes. I didn't know there were homes like that in the Dallas area at all, much less out there in Rockwall. It's unbelievable. But that's what would happen. And so I kept hearing about when we met with this guy, Dave Campbell, who was on this radio show that we played here several times. He kept saying that there was a gentleman who was a congressman, and his name's Congressman Ralph Hall. And coincidentally enough, Ralph Hall is a member of the Tom DeLay Congressional Committee, or he was when that was still around, the Free Congress Foundation, the American Israeli Cooperative Enterprise. I have found his name associated with Council for National Policy members. Guess where Mr. Ralph Hall's office sits right on top of? One of the temple rooms of the rock wall, right across from the old courthouse. Yep. Now there's a lodge, a Masonic lodge in Rockwall called the East Fork Masonic Lodge, and the East Fork of the Trinity River runs right next to where the wall used to be. Now, if you go to the East Fork Trinity and Rockwall Masonic Lodge website, across the top of the website, it has a little like digital representation, like a little cartoon thing all around the border of the page of the rock wall. Well, lo and behold, when you go there and you look at their members, I got one guest for you, folks, who was a current member of the East Trinity Lodge, number 157, Ralph Hall. Ralph Hall, and there's a street named after him in Rockwall. Word around the campfire is Ralph Hall, who I think is now like 83 years old, still kicking strong. Ralph Hall has been the biggest person in all of Rockwall that has been single-handedly keeping anything going, keeping this covered up. So there I definitely have my connection to Ralph Hall and the CMP types and the priest class and the reasons why they're keeping this covered up. I didn't record the meeting. Delphi's ex-boyfriend recorded the meeting, so you know how that goes. Which means, no, I don't have the recordings of it. We were all supposed to work on a film about this, and then, you know, boyfriends and girlfriends break up, and then people don't do things that they say they're going to do. And, you know, it's been 3 years now. And so after 3 years of, you know, dealing with people who don't do what they say they're going to do, I'm just tired of not dealing with it anymore. I want to go get back into this. I put it off, and, you know, it's just one of those things that happens, I guess. But it's important to me. And I'm going to get back into it, you know, and into looking at this. But this connection with Ralph Hall, this Freemason, they're one of the stone rocks that I mentioned earlier, which is comprised almost completely of garnet. That was what was interesting. These giant 2.5 stone 2.5-ton stone rocks they found next to the wall in the early 1940s were comprised almost mostly of garnet, which is an interesting thing for them to be made of, considering all the writing they had on them. Well, according to John Lindsay, the architect, one of these big stone rocks was in the bottom of the old courthouse in Rockwall for a long time, and in the middle of the night, they basically stole it out of there, and it went to the house and residence of an affluent Rockwall person. Now, nobody is wanting to talk about who exactly this affluent person was who now has this giant 2.5-ton stone from the rock wall with ancient writing on it in their house, not allowing the scientific community or any one of us out here to examine it and have it on public display. And as soon as John Lindsay, the architect, started asking questions about it, well, he found out actually who has it. And as soon as he started making a ruckus about it, they started trying to shut him up real quick. That's when the funding got cut. That's when the Rockwall Historical Society completely dropped the issue of the wall at all like a hot potato when they were all behind it before. From what I understand, Congressman Ralph Hall not only was responsible for, basically getting the Rockwall City Council and Historical Society and everything else to go to sleep on the issue, but also, from what I have gathered, I don't know if this is absolutely true, so don't quote me on this, but from what I understand, it's Ralph Hall who has this in his house. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Big cornerstone from this wall with ancient writing on it that nobody can identify, from a structure that the scientific community says is man-made, and we have a well-known conservative Christian right-winger congressman with this fucking thing in his house, not letting anybody see it, examine it, or anything else. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. So regardless of how much information we have on the wall, regardless of how much information we have or we might be able to get on it or dig up or anything else, we do have evidence that what I've been telling you for a long time is that this thing is bigger than anybody wants to admit, because what it proves is that the whole idea of how man came to be is a lie, an absolute lie. We already know that, but it's a little bit different when you have this kind of information, this evidence. So that's what I think it is. I think it's some sort of ancient, like the Mexican Atlantis, Aslan. And of course, the Republicans and the right wingers and these, priest class minions are going to be the ones that are going to be charged with keeping this thing quiet. And let me see if I can find this other. Here it is. Rockwall County's 10 most expensive homes. Now, I found this, and I found this interesting, and that these locations, and you can see some of it in some of you can see that some of these houses are on big hills. And this is the flatland around here. There's no hills like this. All these structures around Rockwall, when you come into Rockwall from Rowlett on the Highway 66 bridge, there's a 550-foot elevation drop. I've driven on it a million times for my whole life, but I've always noticed that your ears pop because the elevation goes up and down 550 feet on both sides. And this is prime area where the rock wall, the main areas of the rock wall, the chambered rooms and the temple rooms have been found. Because it's just, when you come down the 66 bridge, you dead end right to where the courthouse is. But a lot of these houses, $41.4 million, $2.76 million. There's a castle that's built on part of this. There's another one in here that you can see up on a big hill. I'll drop this in the chat room. And when you look at that list, the top 10 most expensive homes in Rockwall, it's interesting, man. They're all right in that area between the I-30 bridge and Highway 66. I'm talking about $100 million homes built right on top of this thing. And you got to wonder why. And I think there's some sort of signature, some sort of electrical signature there that is I don't know. I really can't tell you. I don't know. There's something there. Otherwise, they wouldn't put all of the most expensive properties, and it's the richest county in the entire state of Texas. Isn't that interesting that that's where Alex Jones is from too, huh? Pretty. I mean, are we supposed to think that's a coincidence too? And you know what? All those houses I showed you are in a gated community, and there aren't that many gated communities there in Rockwall. But yeah, it's probably where Alex Jones lived, because he talked about living in a gated community in Rockwall growing up there. Wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Unbelievable stuff, though. Let's see here. Do we have any email questions tonight? Yeah, I think it is an energy field. I think there's definitely something there that has to do with an energy field. I've experienced that. I got some buddies that have experienced weird stuff, weird acceleration stuff on their motorcycles around that area before. I've had missing time over there. Me and a buddy of mine had lost 3 or 4 hours one time crossing the bridge. Another friend of mine lost time there. We were near this power plant, which is right by the rock wall, right on the lake one time, and we got hit by some sort of, I don't know what it was. I don't know. All I know is that it whatever it was, we blacked out, and we were scared like we never been scared in our lives, but we couldn't explain why we were scared. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. It was a force. It was a I don't know, an energy. It was a spirit. It was something. And it hit us, and we were crying like we were little girls. No, you can't see where the rock wall is above or below ground, because the rock wall's buried 50 feet under the ground. You have to dig 50 feet down to the fucking shale where the bedrock is to get to the motherfucking thing. The only parts of it you can see above the ground are the places where they've excavated part of it, and you can see it on Google Earth and stuff like that. But no, it's the people always ask that. Where can I go and see this rock wall? You can't see. I mean, if there was somebody out there that was wealthy, beyond anything, and is interested in this, I've said this a million times. I have had people contact me in the past, but if we get I've crunched the numbers on it. It ain't going to be cheap. It's going to be in the upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I had one person out there one time that said they wanted to put up like $500,000, which would be stellar if we get something like that. But you need backhoes, you need water pumps, you need surveyors, archaeologists. You need a team of people. But if all those things could be brought together, we could get some more information on this. But the problem is, because the scientific community across the board has been convinced to go to sleep on the issue and has been convinced that it's a natural formation, grants are impossible to come by. You can't, even with the evidence that's been presented. What we need is a new dig so we can get a new paleomagnetic survey done. Because Dr. Wolf Goss, who did the original paleomagnetic survey in 1999, we have pictures of him doing it, was so freaked out from his findings, he will not allow his findings to be published until after he's dead. So what did he find? You know what's interesting? If you get an idea of what a paleomagnetic survey is, there's a scene in the original Jurassic Park movie where they're doing a paleomagnetic survey, and it allows him to see through all these chambers and stuff. So essentially what I gather is that when you do a paleomagnetic survey, it allows you to see all of the entire structures within the wall. But like I said, the guy who did do the paleomagnetic survey on it, he was from Dr. Wolf Goss at the University of Texas in Austin. He wouldn't talk about it. It scared the ever-living bejesus out of that guy so bad, whatever it was. and was so monumental, he will not allow his findings to be published until after his death. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. Tracy in the chat room says that she's been doing research on Google Earth throughout the last 10 years on random dates. There's digging activity in some places, and then all remnants of that or activity are completely gone the next day. Yeah, they scrub stuff off the internet all the time. There were things back in I don't know, 2007, 2008. There was things that radio host Michael Vale that he and I had found on people like Chuck Baldwin. I mean, me and Michael Vale used to have tons and tons of links to stuff talking about Chuck Baldwin being a CMP member. And then after they tanked the Ron Paul campaign and everybody got behind Chuck Baldwin, boy, that shit was scrubbed off the internet. Me and Vale couldn't find any of that stuff anywhere. Not an inkling of it. There's been a lot of stuff like that. I mean, there's been a lot of research and stuff that I've done on various topics and talked about, and then people go back and try to find it, and then the articles are removed. You know, they're scrubbing stuff all the time. Google Earth only goes back to 2001 for Rockwall, huh? Doesn't allow you to go back to 99 when they were actually doing the dig, now does it? No. Because if people could see what they uncovered there, and you can see what they uncovered, there's a video on YouTube that Delphi's ex-boyfriend had gotten, and he put it up. But no, I you know, there's a big time campaign going on to keep this thing covered up, and I think we know now why that is. I think I'm actually going to put something out in like the Rockwall paper or on Craigslist or something that says, you know, looking for people with information on this. You know, anybody have any information? Because from what I understand, there are tons of families. There are certain families around the Rockwall area that have artifacts from the wall that they won't show to the public. I really want to make a movie about this, though. At least just something that'll get interest up, and maybe we can present enough information in a film about it that we could basically use as sort of a sell point for people who may want to, you know, or may be interested in possibly funding a new dig. Because I still think the best thing to do would be to locate an area where some of the wall is, buy a piece of property, and then, you know, do your own personal excavation and don't tell anybody about it. That's the whole thing is, you know, I mean, shit, even if it did happen, even if we did get somebody that wanted to do this, I can't say I could get up here and tell you about it, honestly. You know what I mean? Not to at least until after the fact. Just because there's every time somebody gets close to this, well, for instance, John Lindsay, who I talked about earlier, the architect, I mean, he had two guys right after he made some big groundbreaking discovery and started coming out and saying it's 55 million years old. So how do you explain there being intelligent people 55 million years ago? That pretty much squashes all of religion and science right there now, doesn't it? Very next day after saying that, he got visited by people he said were church people in black suits that told him that he needed to keep his mouth shut about this stuff. So yeah, there's definitely there's definitely a big campaign going on to keep people quiet about it. And I think that if you know, a lot of the information out there, I just want to make a film about it because nobody else has made one about it yet, and I feel that if I could do that, then it might, you know, get some more people interested in it. But yeah, finding out about Ralph Hall and his connections to that and the Freemasons and stuff like that, that was another mind blower. Anyway, we're going to take a break, come back, and we're going to jump into some news for you here tonight. We are getting Moonbatty. It's a late night Moonbat edition for you. GlobalRealityShow@gmail.com. is my email address. It's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. You want to shoot an email to me if you got a comment or a question or something you want to hear me talk about tonight. That's where you can send that out. We're going to get into more news, more information tonight as well here on the show. This is the Global Reality. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Late night Moonbat edition for you here tonight, and we are getting Moonbatty as hell. Glad you could join us. Glad you're staying up with us, and love to hear from you. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Comments, thoughts, questions, topics, anything else, you just send them right over there. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. I'll do my best to get into them either on tonight's show or another show later on this week. Either one. We'll see what happens. But tonight we're going to get back into more news here for you on the broadcast. Be sure to support our network and what we do. Keep us commercial free, uncensored, and to keep the information coming out and keeping it coming forward. It's very important now that we continue to have shows like mine and others out there that are decoding what's going on to keep people focused on really the important things of why we all got interested in this stuff in the first place, and that is to find out the truth of the lies that we've been told about the world that we exist in, which is being perpetrated against humanity in order to fulfill their great work. And all of us got into this because there was a particular issue we felt was important, and it's gotten to this point. But now there are forces and entities that are trying to negate all that by getting people distracted with, this Hollywood garbage of these, cokehead people who have contributed. What has Charlie Sheen ever contributed to the world, to society ever? Nothing. So by that rationale, there's no reason why we should even be discussing. There's plenty of things that we could be talking about, plenty of other issues that we're going to be getting into here tonight, and we can get into anytime. So let's make sure that we stay on task and stuff. And I think that that's why it's important that you support our network and what we do here and stuff. So shipping banner's there for the bills, the donate button is there for films, all the rest of the stuff. So act accordingly, use that to support our work, so we don't have to have commercials and all that stuff, folks. There you go. All right, let's jump into some news here for you this evening. Google Earth is now going to be sending trikes to wooded areas, parks, to continue their quest to, I guess, map and take pictures of every location on Earth. They don't want anything that to be no stone to be unturned, I guess, so they can feed this into the Caesar system. So the eyes and they want to have a picture and a digital image of every single nook and cranny on the face of the planet now, so that they can then map that, and I guess the computer will be able to find where carbon-based life forms are at when the machines start wiping us all out. Some of these stories, I'm just going to do that too tonight. I'm just going to go through really quickly. I have a stack of them here, so I'm just going to try to get them. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading each one of these. I remember hearing 15, 16, 17 years ago about a rock that they had found in Antarctica or something that had, they said it come from Mars, when Mars had some extinction level event on the planet or something, and it had these microbes, and it was carried to Earth, and that may have been what seeded all life. And you guys have heard about this. They rewrote this story out at least 4 times in the 4 years I've been on air. I saw it rolled out again. Last time I remember happening was Christmas of 2009. Right away, yeah, the same day that the underwear crotch bomber thing happened. And here they are again. I mean, I thought that this was old information. I thought that they had, found this rock, because apparently it was sitting on top of somebody's mantle for years before they had it analyzed to figure out what it was. But here again, they're recycling this story, and I'm just wondering why. But let's read it. Did seeds to life on Earth come from outer space? Meteorite found in Antarctica contained nitrogen building blocks. This is from the Daily Mail. Nitrogen has been found in a meteorite that smashed into Antarctica, bolstering the theory that life on Earth came from outer space. Tests revealed the raw. I see what this is. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. See, the microbes evolved and turned into humans. See, don't listen to those people that tell you that humans were genetically manipulated. No, this is our smoking gun. Okay, now I understand why they recycled this story a million times. It makes sense to me now. This is their sell point for their Darwinian evolutionary system. Okay. Tests revealed the rock contained ammonia, which is made up in part of nitrogen, and it contains DNA and proteins, the building blocks of life. It adds weight to the theory that life on our planet did not come from here, but instead arrived from somewhere else entirely. Right, but the people who say that life on Earth didn't come from here, but somewhere else entirely also believe that we were genetically manipulated, blah, blah, blah. So this is, again, steering the conversation back the way they want it to go, aren't they? Some scientists believe that Earth was not able to provide all the basic molecules which were needed to allow primitive life form to develop. To prove their theory, researchers have turned to other avenues to explain how we came to be. In the latest experiment, a team conducted tests on 4 grams of rock extracted from the grave Natonix 95229 meteorite, which was found in Antarctica in 1995. Oh, so like I said, this is the same rock. Yeah, like I said, it was about 15, 16 years ago when I first started hearing about it. Yep, 1995. There, yeah. So again, there they are. They're admitting that this is the same rock. They've rolled this story out a million times about, this is where the building blocks of life, but they always act like it's new. So see there, it says in the latest experiments. They don't say that they've done this experiment a million times and each time they roll this out. It's just unbelievable. They really, really seem to be trying to push this into everybody believing it. The researcher from Arizona State University and the University of California, Santa Cruz found that there were large amounts of hydrocarbons, but also plentiful supplies of ammonia. Given that meteorites and comets have reached Earth since it formed, it has been proposed that the exogenous influx from these bodies provided the organic inventories necessary for the emergence of life. The authors wrote in the study, meteorites have been of interest to the scientific community since the 19th century, when it was ascertained that they contain chemicals which could only be formed in cold temperatures as well as those that had been altered by heat. The theory that has developed is that asteroids in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter may have produced smaller meteorites which have shot off into space and landed on Earth. No, there weren't any things that blew up or anything and crammed to Earth. No, not at all. This also has implications for how our solar system and possibly other solar systems form. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. They've rolled this story out 10 or 15 times now, and you have to assume they have an agenda when they try to push it into the consciousness of people that much. Minority Report style shopping. That's what everybody wants, isn't it? That's the American dream, right? Walking into a store and hologram popping up and knowing exactly what you want right when you walk into the store. That's the American dream, right? It sounds like a scene straight out of Minority Report. Advertisers are developing digital posters which will recognize people's faces and respond if they are paying attention. Cameras attached to the billboards will scan to see if passersby are looking and immediately change their display to keep them watching. The posters recall the famous scene in the 2002 science fiction thriller Minority Report. Well, why don't you reference Philip K. Dick first? Before you point out the 2002 movie with Tom Cruise, why don't you first talk about the Philip K. Dick novel that it was based on? How about that? I'm sorry, it just pisses me off. Let's talk about the movie first. Oh, there's a movie. I made a book out of that movie, huh? So people always say, oh, they made a book out of it too. Well, I guess if you're a reader, that's a good thing. I ain't a reader much. The scanners also pick him up when he enters a Gap store and show him an image of a woman selling clothes. So far, the most advanced posters allow shoppers to see what clothes would look like on them by superimposing the items on a digital picture of themselves. What we are trying to do is figure out what your brain is doing, said Benjamin Palmer, chief executive of advertisers of the Barbarian Group. I can't even believe I just read that. His group is called the Barbarian Group. What the fuck? Let me post it. Let me post that that quote there. What we are trying to figure out is what your brain is doing, said Benjamin Palmer, chief executive advertisers of the Barbarian Group. Oh, I mean, you know what I'm saying right about now. My God. That is a hell of a business name. Benjamin Palmer, old Benji Palmer. Sounds like a name for a fucking, I don't know, a Tijuana treat or something. With some $5 handy. Benjamin Palmer, Chief Executive Officer of the Barbarian Group. What we're trying to do is figure out what your brain is doing. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear from somebody in advertising. My God. I'm glad Bill Hicks is dead already. He'd be blowing advertisers' brains out right now if he heard this. He's going on a killing spree. Jesus. I mean, we're really there, aren't we? That's just out in the open. Yeah, my God. Ladies and gentlemen, we have advertisers, people in advertising now. Chief executive here, chief executive of advertising for the Barbarian Group, who says his direct quote is, what we're trying to do is figure out what your brain is doing. So that then we can manipulate that. If your eyes are the window into the soul, we're paying attention to what you're paying attention to. What? That's the quote after the aforementioned quote. He says, if your eyes are the window to the soul, we're paying attention to what you're paying attention to. So he just said right there, we want to know what your brain is doing so we can look into your soul. That's what, is that not what he pretty much just said right there? We want to figure out what your brain is doing so that we can pay attention to what you're doing so we can look into your soul and see how we can sell you products. Barbarian hopes this summer to introduce billboards which respond if you are paying attention. But other executives have spoken of developing technology that actually recognizes faces. If you raise your eyebrow, it can track that. Facial recognition technology has been around for some years, but only now is it heading to the shops because it is affordable to do so. The systems can detect frowning or nodding and could identify individuals raising potential privacy concerns. If you want to do something evil with it, I'm sure you could. It's the same thing with anything else technology-wise. Right, so now if you are a person of interest and you happen to go in somewhere where they have one of these facial recognition things at, well, they'll scan your face and they'll send somebody to escort you to one of their wonderful holding facilities, I'm sure, where they serve gumdrops and lollipops all day. Yeah, it's crazy. Let's see what else we have here tonight. Oh, this yeah. Well, I could have told you this one, Jack. I've been telling you this since 2009. Yemen president says that the U.S. and Israel is behind the unrest there. Well, who else? I mean, who else would be behind it? Right? Because everybody else in the world's innocent. Russia and China and all the other countries, they're not bad at all. They wouldn't be behind. You see how this is happening? And you notice how easy now it's become to scapegoat Israel and the U.S. with everything. So, I mean, it should be apparent to every single free-thinking individual out there in the listening audience that they're shifting world power around, and they're making their scapegoats, and they're making their fall guys, and they're making their patsies. But the real thing about this is that the United States and Israel are acting on the behalf of people that control the countries of China and Russia and the rest of these anyway. That's the real joke. It's one big cabal. Yemen's embattled president on Tuesday accused the U.S., his closest ally, of instigating the mounting protests against him, but the gambit failed to slow the momentum for his ouster. Hundreds of thousands rallied in the cities across Yemen against the government of President Ali Abdullah Saleh in the largest of the protests of the past month, including one addressed by an influential firebrand cleric, a former ally of Saleh, whom the U.S. has linked to al-Qaeda. Right. No, well, of course. Because anybody who is against the mainstream or the intelligentsia of whatever country has to be a terrorist and has to be with al-Qaeda. That guy Gary Vay from ViewZone, who did a lot of the stuff on the research about the Ark of the Covenant being in Yemen, he was in Yemen before 9/11. And the week that they discovered this pre-Canaanite, pre-Semitic language that had only been found in places like Saco Canyon in Utah and in Colorado, next to, of course, these, depictions of sky gods and aliens and stuff of that nature. The very week that they discover this Proto-Canaanite language, 9/11 happens. This guy, Gary Vay, goes to the airport to get back on the plane to come back to the United States, and they tell him that he's wanted for questioning as a suspect in connection with al-Qaeda. And then they claimed that the archaeological site that he had been at for months or weeks or however long it was actually an al-Qaeda training camp. And he said, I've never seen anybody from al-Qaeda. I was in an archaeological site, and they said that he was wanted or something, so he fled to Vietnam and I guess lived there for a while. So that's interesting. They literally claimed that this archaeological site was an al-Qaeda training camp. That's how desperate they are to cover up what's there and have an excuse to destabilize this country and go in there and get it. That's what's going on. Don't mistake it, folks. All of this Middle East stuff is being done to upend those countries so they can go in there and take over, set up the third temple in Jerusalem, and obtain these ancient artifacts so that they can attempt to keep mankind in infinite slavery. But I tell them, like I tell everybody every day, it's not going to happen. It's just not. You know why? Because I believe it's not. And that's why, ultimately, we will be doomed to whatever we believe is going to happen. And if more people believe there's going to be martial law and FEMA camps and people rounded up and shot and arrested, then by God, it's probably going to happen. But as long as we don't allow ourselves to buy into that, and we know that we would not be put here on this place to meet a fate such as that, and we won't allow that to be manifested in our reality, then we won't manifest that. That's what all of this stuff, a lot of this stuff's about with these guys. That's what the 2012 fear-mongering is about. That's what any of this fear-mongering is about. They are using our greatest gifts, our powers that humankind have, that they are keeping the knowledge of from us, and manipulating us and using it against us and getting us to manifest doom and gloom and all this end-time stuff by telling it it's real, and then we manifest it for them. They don't have to lift a finger. Well, not on my watch. So, the best thing I can tell you is when somebody tries to fearmonger you about a particular thing, just don't believe the hype. Be concerned, but don't allow the fear to consume you, because fear is not concern, and concern is not fear. That needs to be made very clear to a lot of people out there, I'm afraid. Iran says that the Olympic logo is racist and that it depicts the word Zion in it. Well, yeah, I could told you that. Olympic logos are, Rick Clay did some work on that. Yeah, there it is, bigger than shit right there. It says Zion in it. Yeah. Oh, you didn't know? I mean, my God. I'm not even going to get into the history of the Olympics and who created that. You should all know that by now. That's real low-level stuff. Look into that yourself. I'm not going to get into it. Don't ask me. Don't come in the chat room and go, Well, what's a cult about the Olympics? Tell me right now. Just look it up yourself, please. It's not the kiddie pool. You came looking for the kiddie pool. You need to go back and listen to Alex Jones. Thanks. First U.S. scientist to die of plague in 50 years worked in labs with quote-unquote harmless bacteria. Scientist died after becoming the first American researcher to contract the plague in 50 years, it has been revealed. Malcolm Casadaban, 60, was working with a weakened form of the plague's bacteria thought to be harmless to humans when he died in September 2009, a report said. The University of Chicago genetics and cell biology professor's work with the live bacteria was not even noted when he fell ill, and he followed proper safety protocols. Dr. Casadaban was researching the chain of events that happens when a person is made sick by the bacteria. Well, I guess he found out, didn't he? The bubonic plague, which killed at least a third of the population of medieval Europe in the 14th century, still infects more than 2,000 people annually worldwide today. But the weakened bacteria have never previously been linked to human illness and are not covered by strict safety measures that regulate studying other deadly germs. Oh, well, this is, let's say this is an excuse. Oh, this guy died from it in 2009. And we don't know if the, person that did the autopsy and everything else was exposed to this. Now the plague is out into the general public again. You see how this happens? And then they just pull up this story 2 years from now and say, yeah, well, this Malcolm Casadaban, he was a scientist. He was working on it. The fact of the matter is, there are treaties against this. We're not even supposed to have a lot of these bioweapons, but that doesn't stop these fuckers. They continue on doing it anyway. They don't care. Laws apply to you and I. They don't apply to them. More news on the seems that after they get done with peak oil, then they're gonna they're going to start in on the water, and they're going to start going after the water next, even though with the weather modification technology we have now, there should never be any shortage of water, ever. But they're starting it up again. This is from CNN. Skyrocketing water bills mystifying anger residents. Residents throughout Atlanta are outraged by hundreds, even thousands of dollars in monthly spikes in their water bills and have questioned the legitimacy of the charges for years, and now they're demanding answers. Well, if it's in Atlanta, then, they're probably, the reason their water bills are so high is because they're having to pump all that water out of the public system into the Coca-Cola plant to bottle up their Dasani water. You know that, right? Dasani water? It's Atlanta City tap water. Not even kidding you. It's not even filtered or anything. It might be filtered, but either way, it's straight out of the tap. I thought we were sinking in a water hole, said Debbie Scarborough. It scared me to death. I thought we had a major leak when I got the bill. Over 2 months last summer, her family monthly water bill shot up to $1,805 in July. My God. I'd just laugh at that and think it was a mistake. Your water bill should never be anything close to that high. And then to $1,084 in August. I'm not paying a $3,000 bill. Yeah. Similar complaints about huge water spikes have popped up in Cleveland, Ohio, Charlotte, North Carolina, Tampa, Florida, and Brockton, Massachusetts. It appears that the issue has lasted the longest in Atlanta. So that'll probably be the next artificial scarcity operation that they attempt to run. Did you guys hear they're nominating WikiLeaks for a Nobel Peace Prize? I mean, they'll just give that piece of shit to anybody. They give it to fucking Barry Obama. They gave it to fucking Al Gore for using clips out of Roland Emmerich's Day After Tomorrow film. My God, they'll give that thing to anybody. Thank you, WikiLeaks, for being such an op. Thank you so much. Oh, speaking of that, you guys hear about this one too? WikiLeaks rebukes allegations that Assange complained of a Jewish conspiracy. That's funny. Because he talked about, anybody that thinks 9/11 was an inside job or 9/11 was a lie is a kook. But he's hollering about a Jewish conspiracy. Well, I think we with what I put in my stuff about him being, I think Assange is one of the boys from Brazil. He's a goddamn Joseph Mengele test tube experiment. I'm convinced of it. Go watch my Reality of Illusion series film if you haven't seen that. Julian Assange, the Nazis, and the White Brotherhood. It's on my website, theglobalreality.com, underneath the documentaries there. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he was talking about a Jewish conspiracy. My God, little Nazi he is. I mean, confirmed Nazi. I mean, confirmed. The White Brotherhood, man, he was in that cult with his mother. Secret outlets WikiLeaks was on the defensive Tuesday after a British publication claimed that founder Julian Assange had complained of a Jewish conspiracy to smear his organization. That claim, Private Eye editor Ian Oslip recalled, came directly from a phone call with Assange himself, and the allegations' level of specificity was seemingly enough to trigger a lengthy response. In the latest issue of British current affairs magazine Private Eye, editor Ian Hislop details the February 16th call from the WikiLeaks founder. Assange had phoned to complain about a report in the previous month's magazine that claimed that a WikiLeaks associate in Russia, Israel Shamir, was a Holocaust denier. Again, how ironic is that? I swear to God they make this shit up. I swear to God. I mean, there's some scriptwriter, man, who's just laughing his ass off putting this shit in the Associated Press every goddamn day. Let me read that for you one more again. Assange had phoned to complain about a report in the previous month's magazine where he claimed that the WikiLeaks associate in Russia named Israel Shamir was a Holocaust denier. So the guy named Israel was a Holocaust denier. Isn't that funny? Yeah, kind of like Ben Bernanke. Ben Bernanke's middle name is Shalom. Ben Shalom Bernanke. Not to be confused with Ram Israel Emanuel, who's now the mayor of Chicago, which I guess means that Larry Silverstein will get to pull another insurance op. They're going to bring down the Sears Tower at some point. I know they are. They've tried to provocateur a few things there already, and it didn't work. It's kind of very similar to the World Trade Center. They've got, a lack of people renting there and the low number of leases in the building. And Larry Silverstein owns it. And now that he's got Rahm Emanuel in there, I'm sure it'll make it a lot easier for them to pull that op off. And I think it's going to happen. I do. I've been convinced of it for a long time. But isn't that funny? I mean, my God, seriously, I'm not kidding though. His middle name really is Israel. Ram Israel Emanuel. You can't make that stuff up, man. He allegedly called the report crap, but admitted that he had not read it. Yeah, well, Assange, you're a Nazi. We know it. All these fucking guys, all these motherfuckers, they're all Nazis. They're all Nazis. They're all white supremacists. They're all white nationalists. That's what I didn't get, man. 7 or 8 years ago when I first started getting involved in the 9/11 Truth Movement stuff, I first started hearing about Alex Jones, some of these guys, and I just could never get why guns and weapons and all this shit was associated with conspiracies. It took me a long, and then once I found out that, what we know now about the CMP and the white nationalists and all this stuff, now I understood, okay. Because like I said, I had a boss, man, and he was into all this stuff. He was into all this, all that same kind of stuff, man. He was one of those. And he was always going off talking about the Turner Diaries and all this stuff. And his parents, big in with the Bush family. I mean, it's, they owned a sandwich shop I used to work at. But that's what it's all about, man. All these guys are all white supremacist, white nationalists who have used the Patriot Movement and the Truth Movement now to attempt to build on a lie their army to bring about the prophecy in the Turner Diaries. That's what they're trying to do. They're getting all these people telling them, oh, it's the New World Order this, but really what they're doing is amassing their army so they can get the race war to begin. That's what they want. They want to start a race war so that they can start eliminating all the undesirable races, which I guess is anything except, pure Aryan blood or whatever. I mean, riddle me this. Howard Phillips, Larry Pratt, up there in Estes Park, Colorado in 1991, passing out this manual on how to set up local militias. The same year, Larry Pratt talks about we need citizen-style militias. That was a white supremacist rally. And the funny thing about it is Howard Phillips is Jewish. And there's Howard Phillips with these white supremacists, you know, talking about how they're going to create the Contras in America, essentially. And that booklet that they passed out, this was reported by Rolling Stone magazine, set the blueprint for what the modern day militia movement is. Now, why would that have been? Why would the blueprint for the modern day militia have been created at a white supremacist rally? And why was it happen to be Larry Pratt and Howard Phillips there initiating this? And those two have been prominent guests on many Patriot radio talk shows. Many Patriot radio talk show hosts out there love Howard Phillips and Larry Pratt. And I just, you know, I'm sorry. The days of, well, we can forgive the fact that this person was, you know, associated with white supremacists. You know, that was 10 years ago. Well, you know, and it's the same thing where you have these clowns that try to say, they're trying to wiggle out of the fact that they were a member. Because the fact is, we don't have current membership lists of the Council for National Policy. They don't make them available. But what these guys try to do is, the ones that we've confirmed from old lists, see, they count on the fact that people are stupid and haven't done their homework. That's why you have to do your homework, so these guys can't pull one over on you, so you have a response when they try to give you a shill answer to one of your questions. For instance, people like Stan Monteith and Jack McLam or Chuck Missler, people like that who have been members of the Council for National Policy and whose names we have on membership lists. What they do is they say, well, I was a member, but I'm not a member now, and I got in the group and I didn't like it and it was too expensive or whatever have you, and so I'm not a member now. But there's no way to verify that. You're just going to take them at their word? And we're just supposed to say, okay, well, you know, yeah, I associated with white supremacists and Nazis and all these bloodline, you know, Jesuits and all this stuff, but I don't associate with those people now. Well, how can we prove that? Because again, it's easy for any of these clowns to say, well, I was a member. And you notice, I've noticed that's the new meme when they get asked about it. They say, oh, I was a member, but I'm not a member anymore. Funny how every single person, now that's three of them now, Missler, Monteith, and Jack McLam, that I can name off the top of my head, probably more than that have this canned answer of, well, I was a member, but I'm not anymore. But again, there's no way to prove they're not a member anymore because we cannot get current member lists. The current member lists are secretive. That's the reason why these people can get away with saying they were a member or not. But how do we know? We don't know. But we can no longer assume that because, you know, they just claim that they're not a member anymore, that somehow they're not associated with the same ideologies and mindset. And people that buy into that haven't done their homework. If they buy you with an explanation and can explain it away every time and then just kill the issue, you know, you should question that. Anyway, let's continue on here. See what else we have in the news. Oh, this has got to be the raddest thing I've seen all day. Boba Fett plays the Legend of Zelda song on an accordion in a subway. That's nerdalicious. Absolutely nerdalicious. Boba Fett plays the Legend of Zelda on an accordion in a subway. That is a sentence I can honestly say at 34 years old, I probably thought I'd never get to say. So I had to say it. Boba Fett plays the Legend of Zelda theme on an accordion in a subway. Thank you very much. It's just the sentence you never get to say in life, you know? What was the old George Carlin bit where he said, you know, well, here's a sentence you'll never hear. Honey, I'm going to go into the other room and stick a red hot poker up my ass. You know, shit like that. Is just, you know, well, I cut my own balls off. I'll be back in a minute. You know, shit like that you're never going to hear. Words you're never going to hear put it in a sentence together. It's greatness. Let me go through my rest of my stacker. Oh, hippies rejoice. VW unveils a new version of the microbus. Oh, shit. They're bringing the microbus back. I can smell the patchouli and the hippie stink from here. Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. All the metrosexual hippies will be all over this. U.S. astronauts to bottle space for Japan. Why are they bottling space? I didn't think you could bottle space. Oh, I forgot. Space is actually water. It's not a vacuum. I think it is. I think it's actually like, I mean, every time you see these pictures from the space shuttle of those things in space, like the space serpents on it, look like they're gliding through water. And what about that footage of the Chinese spacewalk that looked fake, that everybody said it was Chinese, the China faking their spacewalk, and you could see bubbles coming up? I mean, are they been lying to us? Is space actually not a vacuum and actually like water? I don't know. 2 American astronauts begin on Monday the first of 2 spacewalks to install a permanent spare closet on the orbiting International Space Station and also to bottle some outer space for Japan. How can you bottle outer space? The unusual project is part of a team effort with Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, to open up a metal cylinder that has been signed by other artists, astronauts, and bring it back for public display. The so-called message in a bottle experiment, in which they will expose a metal canister to capture the vacuum of space, is planned for the end of a 6-hour experiment. How can you capture a vacuum into a container? I'm just confused by that. Anybody out there got any ideas? Anybody? I don't know. It's wild. Oh, here's a good one. He does not remember it. RFK killer seeks parole. Sirhan's attorney suggests assassin was hypno-programmed. Yeah, that's been common knowledge for years. More than 4 decades after Senator Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, his convicted murderer wants to go free for a crime he says he can't remember. It's not only old age or some memory-snatching disease that has erased an act Sirhan Sirhan once said he committed. With 20 years of malice aforethought, it has been that way almost from the beginning. Hypnotists and psychologists, lawyers, and investigators have tried to jog his memory with no useful result. MK Ultra, we've known that for decades. Again, I don't know why they're trying to roll this out now as if it's new information. But as I've said many times, yesterday's conspiracy is today's fact. And that definitely seems to be more and more the case. Everything, the news cycles have been crazy slow since the past couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on right now. I can't explain it, folks, but there's something going on with the media right now. And I know with all the bullshit that the media puts out, that's, there's something going on with the media, Josh. Oh, thanks, Captain Obvious. Tell us something we don't know. That's not what I mean. I mean, I'm just saying, as somebody who day in and day out gathers news, I have noticed no matter what news source I go to, it's like the news is being held back. I don't know. And then all this Charlie Sheen stuff, it just seems that, there's something going on people don't want to be talking about. There's UFO sightings going on all over the place, I know. And remember last year before last, or the past couple of years, it's been like, if somebody saw a fucking some swamp gas or a fucking paper lantern or something, they were, UFO was on every news. People just clamoring to talk about, seeing UFOs now when they would never touch it before. Now there actually are tons of sightings going on. There's YouTube videos every day of new sightings going around. Lots of sightings around the Dallas area too. And, they're getting no news coverage now. Why was it hot to cover UFOs a year or two ago when it's not now? I don't get that. But again, I as somebody I can tell you from who looks at the news every day, it seems that they are really, really trying to keep anything of any importance or any real knowledge or value out of the media right now more than they ever have. And again, I know it's very easy to say, well, that's what they do, Josh. That's the media. I'm aware of all that. You don't have to preach to me about the bullshit of the media. Believe me, I get it. I understand it. I'm just saying, strictly from somebody who gathers news and looks at it all the time, I can tell that something's going on right now where they're really trying to keep, garbage in, garbage out. They're really steering the news away from anything that is. And I think they know that we're gathering a lot of usable intel from this stuff now. I think they do. I think that people like myself and other people out there, whether they be, truthers or patriots or whatever else, and whether I agree with them or they agree with me or whatever else, whether somebody's a shill or whether somebody isn't a shill or a Fed or a, white nationalist or whatever they are, or a CMP member, regardless of all that, we have gathered and gleaned a lot of information from the news, from little hints they've dropped on us over the past few years, to the point now where I think that they've realized what a weapon their own bullshit has become. I really do. I really believe that. I really think that they're now starting to think twice about some of the stuff, and that's why I think that we have to start, just continuing to have good discernment and understand that some of these stories get planted, so we will jump all over them, and so we will, sort of take that as the current talking point. We've got to be very careful of that. I think that you're going to see more and more attempts to trying to get people to jump on disinfo things, or get it behind ideologies that are planted there for them to get behind. We see that all the time. So I think that it's ultimately important right now that we all have our bullshit detectors on high more than we already do. I know most of you, including me, keep them on red alert at all times. That's my suggestion. Bullshit detector, red alert at all times. You want my advice? There it is. Seriously. Put your motherfucking bullshit detector on red alert at all times. Take us up to DEFCON 5 on the bullshit detector. Seriously. Because I think they're going to be slinging it more and more and more. And I think this is all a part of this natural evolution of consciousness. I think that that's what we're existing in right now, is a natural evolution of consciousness. And I think that because our conscious minds are waking up and we are in the great revealing, that's what Revelations is supposed to be about. The book of Revelations, not end times, doom and gloom, all this shit. It's the revealing, the great revealing. All will be revealed. That's actually a line in Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. All will be revealed, but that's what this is, and that's what Revelations are. They're the great revealing. And so, as our consciousness is being, I think there's a definite connection. I don't know what all yet, but I think there's a definite connection with the solar activity and the sun activity that they are trying to negate with chemtrails and all this stuff. I think there's a direct connection to that in our spirituality and our consciousness, and the expanding of our consciousness, and the great revealing. I think there's a connection to that, and I think that that's why they're feeding us more garbage and trying to get us distracted with Charlie Sheen and the rest of this stuff,